Welcome to the Wisconsin Music Podcast.
Thanks, Dean. Hey everyone, Zach Fell for the Wisconsin Music Podcast here. This week I chat with Frank Gappa, G-A-P-P-A, the indie rocker who's making waves in Milwaukee with his distinct sound and engaging performances. Originally from Wisconsin, but inspired by the hustle of New York City, Frank's journey brought him to New York and back home again during the pandemic, where he formed a dynamic trio with local drummer Brad O'Malley and a bassist. We'll dive into the stories behind his latest album, Let Me Show You My Jean Jacket, recorded at Silver City Studios, and get a sneak peek of his music video for the single Not a Good Look. Discover how Frank's music resonates with personal experiences and creates a captivating live experience for audiences. If you're new to the Wisconsin Music Podcast, know that we drop new episodes every Tuesday. You can also hear past episodes on Fox Cities Indie Radio on Thursdays at 6 p.m. and Sundays at 3 p.m. So let's dive right into Frank's interview right here on the Wisconsin Music Podcast. Welcome to the Wisconsin Music Podcast, your go-to source for all things music in the Badger State. I'm your host, Zach Fell, and today we're diving into the world of indie rock with our special guest, hailing from Wisconsin, now making waves in Milwaukee, Frank Gappa with a G, G-A-P-P-A, don't confuse with Zappa, brings a fresh sound and unique perspective to the scene. His latest album, Let Me Show You My Jean Jacket, is a testament to his artistry and storytelling prowess. Get ready for an inside look at Frank's journey, his music, and what's next for this rising star. Let's amplify Wisconsin's music together and welcome Frank. Frank, welcome to the show.
Thanks, happy to be here.
So the first thing I'd like to do is, can you tell us about your musical journey from growing up in Wisconsin to finding your sound here in Milwaukee and meeting the people that are in your band?
Yeah, definitely. I started playing guitar when I was 12 years old, about. So to kind of fast forward through that little section, basically my mom had an acoustic guitar. She was like, here, give this a try. And I couldn't really figure it out on my own. I wasn't that motivated as like a really young kind of, 12-year-old or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was tough. She had like a couple of old school books. She wasn't really a guitar player, so she couldn't really teach me. And yeah, spent some time kind of just looking at it in the corner. And then one year got inspired. I said, Mom, I really want guitar lessons. Ended up meeting this guy who's a Wisconsin, Northeast Wisconsin guy who's actually a pretty successful TikToker now. His name's Eddie Bieber. He goes by Ed the Diver. So he's kind of drifted from music, it seems. But he started teaching me chords and stuff like that. I actually learned initially like doing like worship songs and stuff like that with him. So that was kind of how I got started playing guitar. And then, yeah, just kind of stuck with it. And fast forward a few years, I was in high school and I started listening to, more rock music and stuff. Oh, sorry about that. And I basically, I wanted to learn how to write songs. I just wanted to do that. That was how I felt guitar was kind of pulling me. So yeah, in high school, if we jump up to like my junior, senior year, I started doing the high school talent show, and I grew up in Northeast Wisconsin, very small town. So wasn't a ton of musicians. But yeah, so music kind of just stuck with me through that. And I went to college in Stevens Point, continued playing in bands. I had an acoustic duo that we gigged all around Wisconsin for a bit and did a ton of shows in college. And that was super fun. We recorded an album together. And that, yeah, just everything kind of slowly progressed. I had a band in high school that was kind of a duo. And then I went to college, got another band that was a duo. And then I moved to Minneapolis for 4.5 years after college. And I had a band there. And I worked in the music industry and was working with some other bands, doing some like marketing stuff, some more successful bands, I should say, in Minneapolis than I was at the time.
Okay.
And that was really fun. That was where I was really starting to feel like I was starting to write some songs, and I was starting to feel more confident with my playing. And, as you do all this, you're always learning, especially guitar. I don't feel like I've ever like mastered it, and there's always something to learn.
Oh yeah.
So it's just fun. And from there, I got married, and in 2017, that's when we got married, and we decided we're going to move to New York. So me and my wife packed up, and I think at the very very end of 2017, or maybe it was the beginning of 2018. I don't quite remember I think it was in the fall of 2017, or 18, I should say. We moved to New York, and the band I had in Minneapolis, we disbanded. We never really got anywhere, to be honest. We recorded a few songs, and things just didn't work out. And when I moved to New York, that's when I felt, that's when I started really writing songs that I felt like were mine, and I felt like I could voice my, like, what I wanted to sing about. And I wrote my first EP was just Frank Gappa, self-titled, 4 songs, and it was songs that I really just felt were telling my story, kind of. And so I think for me, that was a huge part in my life where I kind of was like, these are the songs I want to write. I'm not going to continue, writing songs that are just about nothing. I want to write that stuff that's meaningful to me. So yeah, I'm going kind of quick, so I apologize.
No,
but it's a
you're
lot.
fine.
I've been doing this for 20 years, so it's a lot to cover.
Yeah.
And I want to get to Milwaukee because I know we're in Wisconsin here. So yeah, in New York for a couple of years. 2020 pandemic hits. I gigged a bunch in New York as a solo guy. I played like one show with another friend, but I was always doing solo shows, and it was great. The scene in New York is exactly what you think it would be. It's vibrant and full of opportunity. So I definitely recommend anyone who needs to venture out there, do it. It is worthwhile.
Yep.
But yeah, so 2020 pandemic hits, and I moved to Milwaukee with my wife because we thought, let's be closer to family, but we still wanted to be in a city. So we felt like this was a good kind of balance. And yeah, I mean, it was a weird first year back here, and there wasn't a lot going on. But I started gigging right away. Again, just solo. I was playing. The first show I had was was at Kochanski's or Kohanski's. I don't know how you say it exactly, but it's like a Polish bar down here, and they do a lot of music. And it was actually I opened up for the band Diet Light, who you might have heard of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that was kind of like on they were just starting to get going. They were very. I feel like one of the lead singer, Max, was just moving from Chicago to Milwaukee. So they were, I mean, they were solid, don't get me wrong, but they weren't, I mean, now they're huge. I feel like as far as Wisconsin music goes, Milwaukee music goes in particular, they're one of the big dogs. So that was like my first show. And it was just doing solo stuff. And then, we're still writing. I'm always writing and doing that kind of thing. And I had released a single when we moved to Wisconsin because I had recorded one in New York and just didn't get around to releasing it because of pandemic and what have you. So I finally released that in 2021. And the way I met the band, so this is kind of where I'm at. I'm here living in Milwaukee doing solo stuff. And I was planning, believe it or not, to move back to New York. So me and my wife were trying to rent our house, the whole thing. We were, she had a job out there, and things were kind of chaotic in my life. And as things were about to change, where we were like, no, we're going to stay put, this guy in my neighborhood, he texted me and he said, hey, we're doing a block party in our neighborhood. And, would you want to play some music? We know you're a musician, whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. And I kind of knew him from meeting him at some like neighborhood parties and stuff like that. Our neighborhood is very communal. Everybody gets together, and it's really a cool place to live. And so I was like, hey, yeah, aren't you a drummer? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, well, let's just play together then. And I had we'd never played together, anything like that. His name's Brad O'Malley. And he's like, well, I play in death metal bands. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. That means you'll be fine to play this music.
Right.
Like if you can handle that,
right.
Frank Gappa stuff, it'll be easy. And so it was like, I don't know, a couple of weeks before the block party, I was like, yeah, I'll play. We met up at his rehearsal space, and I started playing him. Actually, I think the first song I played for him was Not a Good Look, which is on my recent album. and we just locked in, and he came up with the drum part, and I didn't really give him much notes. I was like, think halftime, and we started playing, and I think we played together for like an hour. We figured out the set, and from there it started very organically, where like we did the block party show as a duo, just drums and guitar.
Yeah.
And it was fun. And so then it was kind of one of those things where I was like, hey, I'm gonna get a drum set in my basement. Why don't we jam? And so we just kind of, him and I would just jam like every week. We'd just be working on songs while I'm kind of playing solo shows and figuring stuff out. We would just kind of work on things. And then from there, I started playing with a guy named Matt Hintz, who's a bass player, he's a guitar player. He's in another great Wisconsin band that hasn't played in a while, but they were called the Rumskis.
Okay.
They did a lot of gigging in like lake country and stuff. Great musician. And he filled in on bass for us, and we were playing, and we had gotten a couple shows booked. So I was like, hey, I need a bass player. We did some backyard shows. We did we played Kochanski's again as a full band, which was fun. And that was sort of like the start of everything. So really me and Brad were the two guys that, we really clicked, and that, was like the core of, Frank Gappa music for this time anyway. And Matt was great, and he had some, family issues to attend to, which ultimately led us to meeting Chris Head. So this is I'm finally getting to that part.
Okay.
The other person in the band, Chris Head, he's another guy, talented musician. He's with a band called Chris Head and the Honchos. They've been gigging around forever. He's from Tennessee originally, and he's just a kind of a master guitar player, can do it all sort of guy.
Okay.
And I asked him when Matt had to drop out because we had a gig at Anodyne. We were doing a big show with MKE Music Night with a bunch of bands. It was super fun. I asked Chris, I was like, hey, Matt can't play. Are you open to playing? And he said, yeah, sure, I'll learn it. So it was basically just started rehearsing with him. And now I've done more gigs with Chris and Brad than with Matt. But it's all, for me, to kind of meeting the band is the one important thing for me as being like Frank Gappa rather than like some band name is I want to be able to play kind of with whoever, and I want to leave that open. It's I write the songs, and Brad is a very core part of it. So I would never, I'd love playing with him, and as long as I can, I will. But that's kind of the beauty of being like a solo artist is if your bass player can't play, you find another one. If your drummer can't play, you find another one. So, but I've been fortunate that these guys have been committed, and they've been wanting to play shows and just kind of keep working on stuff. So yeah, that's sort of like I hope that wasn't too lengthy.
No.
But
no, it's great because hopefully listeners will love to hear the background origin stories of the people on the show.
Yeah.
And you brought up your let me show you my jean jacket. What was like what inspired the songs for that album?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Some of them I've been sitting on for a few years since we lived in New York. There's you might notice Lost in Brooklyn. There's a couple other songs on there that are about my time in New York. Let me show you my jean jacket for me is kind of about me, my journey over the last few years, both musically and just navigating life as I'm 32 now and married, and just kind of trying to figure out my place in the world. I think everybody thinks that happens when you're in your 20s, but it takes time,
Yeah.
So it's like that's definitely what the album's about. And let me show you my jean jacket. The kind of the idea of the title is it's about just let me show you what who I am. I feel like jean jackets are such an iconic symbol with musicians especially, and I always felt that it's hard to get taken seriously as a musician, but it's like, here's my jean jacket, here's me, here's what I am. And if you can listen to these songs, you're hearing a bit of like my life. So it was definitely inspired by different experiences that I've had, and I really tried to write it from my heart, more or less.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So how would you describe your musical style and the sound of the band? Can you share a bit of the collaborative process with your bandmates and how they contribute to shaping it?
Yeah, for sure. For this one, a lot of the songs were written already. I had them kind of locked. There's a few newer ones that I've written in the last year or so. Um, and for me, I kind of come to the rehearsal with here's the song. And Brad has been really great at, he'll play to what I'm doing. And then as far as collaboration goes, he sort of sneaks in with like, hey, what if we tried this? Or what if instead of doing this, you went this way? So I'm nothing's super precious to me when it comes to songwriting in that regard. I'm always open for like what's going to make this better, and what's going to make it fun for the other guys in the band. There's certain things I'll stick on a little bit, but Brad's been very good at just finding a way to make the song and kind of take it from just guitars and vocals to like this whole different thing. So that's really cool. And admittedly, as far as this album goes, I did all the bass parts and all the like second harmonies and stuff like that on the record as well. So I didn't really have anybody else like it contributing other than Brad as far as, what the song structure would be. Now that we've been playing together for a while and the album's out, I've got some new songs in the works, and Chris has been great at writing some bass lines and stuff like that. And I really like to bring a song to rehearsal and be like, here's the new song, guys, and I'll just play it for them, and then I'll say, okay, now let's play it together, and I just like to see where it goes, because it's easy to envision what I want the song to be, but without being able to put all the parts in place, you need someone else to do that. So I feel like Chris and Brad have been great. A new song that we played at our release show, Chris came up with this incredible bass line that totally changes the vibe of the song in a great way. So I'm very open to that kind of collaboration, and just, letting the song kind of speak, and then letting the guys sort of respond to it in that kind of way. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, speaking of new songs, does Wisconsin influence any of the lyrics this time around? I know you said New York did for this last album, but for the new stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think actually there is some songs on the record that are Wisconsin inspired, definitely. And I've always written with that kind of, hometown heart a bit too. I think a lot of what I write lately is sort of more inspired by where I'm at, more in maybe a mental place than necessarily physically. But yeah, Used to This on the record is kind of all about the journey from New York to Wisconsin and moving and kind of living with that decision and stuff like that. So, but yeah, Wisconsin's certainly been inspiring, especially, this last year. So.
I think about driving down Fulton Street, with everything we own, carrying all our weight. Bought a house with a small yard, well, maybe I can make something of where we are. Is it space, trying to keep us well. Got pushed back. Maybe we can make something of what's left. Is it getting better? Or we just used to this? I'm trying to do better. Sorry if you're used to hearing this. Is it getting better? Or we just used to this? Trying to do better. Sorry if you're used to hearing this. Is it getting better? Or we just used to this? Trying to do better. Sorry if you're used to hearing this.
Now, kind of talking about live performances, how do you approach your live performances to create like an engaging and memorable experience for your audience? And what do you enjoy most about performing live?
Oh yeah, I love it, man. I think we sound best live. I love recording and I love making music in a studio. But when I get to play live, that's where the energy is what gets me in. And I've always wanted to give it. I always give it my all. I've played shows where there's nobody there. You're playing to the bartender and your wife, maybe a friend.
Right.
And those are tough. But I always kind of treat them as, well, I got to practice. And this is a good chance to practice performance. It's not just practicing the song. It's like, I gotta be Frank Gappa on stage. I can't just be like, all right, I'm a guy in the background. So yeah, I think we do a good job bringing energy. I like to talk. I like to pull the audience in. There is a song that we pretty regularly get people to sing along with on. It's called "Go Back." It's off my first EP because there's kind of a easy, 3 or 4 word line at the end that repeats. So it's like I usually try and engage people that way. And yeah, I like to open up on stage. I like to be honest with people about what the songs are about. And I've always kind of had a sense of humor that usually likes to push it a little past the line. So I try and pull it back when I'm playing live, but I definitely like just joking around and having fun. It's something that I've always been fascinated with. And I've been doing kind of performance stuff my whole life. From, early on, I was in choir and doing performances and talent shows in school when I was in high school and stuff, and then in college I was in choir and did some plays and stuff like that too. So it's always been part of my life. I love being on stage. I know it sounds conceited and everything, but attention is great. I love it. So
right.
Give me more.
As I'm going through my list here, we've gotten to the point where we talk about work-life balance. So how do you maintain a healthy work-life balance, especially with the demands of being a musician and performing live? Are there like any practices or routines you follow to ensure you have time for both your career and personal life?
Yeah, that's a good question because I'm one of the musicians that also I have a full-time job as well, which is music related, which is great. I sell guitars, like high-end instruments. I work at a guitar shop here in Milwaukee. And so work-life balance is actually, it's tricky because there's a lot of balance with, I balance my day job that, helps pay my bills. I balance my home life with my wife and then friends and what have you there. And then gigging. I think, if I'm being honest, it's tough to feel that music is a priority always because it doesn't always pay that great. A lot of these gigs are, they're door deals or they're free gigs or they're a very minimal amount of money. So it's a lot of weight to put on it. And all the guys in the band have day jobs too. So we're definitely kind of that class of musician where it's like we have to we have to make sure it works with our schedules. So booking, like you asked if I was gigging last night, it is challenging to be that regular. Putting aside getting gigs is challenging enough, even if you were free all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But there is this okay, we have to really think about our gigs and are we all going to be free on this Friday night or this Saturday? If it's a traveling kind of thing, which we haven't done too much of, is it worth the drive kind of stuff? And but I do feel very lucky to have a very supportive wife who is always at the shows and is very for us rehearsing and booking shows and stuff like that. So it's a struggle. In a perfect world, if I could just do this and not have to work a day job, I would do that, but it is tough. And I know people that do it and it's great. I'm jealous. If I'd be lying if I said I wasn't, but it's it's just kind of always been the way I've had to do it because I have bills to pay. And
right.
I'd love to say that I can make a ton of money playing my original music, but it's not always the case.
Right. So if you could create a what do they call it, a business plan of you being just a musician, what do you think your steps would be for that?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think definitely I couldn't do it as just Frank Gappa music, probably, as much as I'd like to. I think there are ways, there's touring companies out there and, management companies that can help kind of take you to that next level. And I think they're tough to get into. I've not, I'd be lying if I said I haven't reached out to some and checked with labels and different stuff like that. But I think for me, if I wanted to do full-time, I'm a musician, I'd probably end up having to do more as like a gigging guitar player, filling in with other bands, doing stuff like that, which I still do, even with like a full-time job. I play at my church. I do worship stuff all the time. And whenever I get an opportunity, I like to be able to play with other bands. But I think that would have to be a big part of the plan would be, okay, how are we going to, diversify and, learn more covers? I think covers is, sadly still kind of what's gets paid the most around here. There's a lot of great venues that do original music, and I've been lucky to find some. And but I know if you really want to play like 4 nights a week, if you're doing cover band stuff, you can get those gigs as long as you're tight and you sound good. So I think I would have to kind of go in that direction of let's form. Frank Gappa Music is going to keep churning, but there's going to have to probably be some other elements that are me playing music in different capacities.
Yeah, I mean, you need multiple, financial streams to be able to succeed, definitely in the music business.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And a lot of people do it really well. So I sell guitars, and so I meet a lot of guitar players that's kind of their whole thing is they just, I play with this guy for a little while. And some of them can take it to another level where they're like, I'm on the road with, whoever, country band or whatever, traveling. And then I come back and then I play with this band. And there's a lot of great musicians that are doing that, and you can make it work. So it's
definitely,
it's just, it's a lot of a grind. But yeah.
Okay. And then where would you see yourself in a musical setting in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah. I think for me, continuing to put out records. I realized this the other day, actually. I was jonesing for like new music. I was sitting and I was like, I just want new music. And I found some, like a band in Chicago, nobody huge, but like a, indie band. And I was like, oh, this song's great. They just released it. I looked at, and all they had was singles. And I was like, oh man, I like albums. I'm an album guy. I like to listen to an artist's whole work of, stuff. And so I think in the next like 3 to 5 years, my goal is just to continue, growing. I definitely want to write more music. I think releasing these songs that I've been sitting on for the last couple of years has been so freeing, because now I feel like I have the kind of the creative mental space to write more. I've already got like 3 or 4 songs kind of in the works. And so my goal is definitely to keep recording, keep playing shows, and kind of just keep pushing forward. I honestly, I think in the next 3 years, I'd love to kind of get to a point where I have like a 4-piece band. Right now we play as a trio,
right?
But I'd love to introduce another guitar player into that, if just as kind of, that's like a little goal, because there's so many great musicians, and I think just to fill out the sound a bit and kind of take things to a different level sonically, and especially in a live performance way, that'll be huge to me. And other than that, I mean, I'd love to tour. I would love to do even sort of a regional kind of, small tour, if that would be big for me. So those are kind of my main goals: just keep pushing, keep writing, keep recording, and then bigger shows, and hopefully do a little tour at some point in the next few years.
Wonderful. Can you share a moment from your live performances that stand out to you as particularly meaningful or powerful?
Sure.
And why it was?
Yeah, I've got a lot. To be honest, I really hold the live performance stuff dear to my heart. And there's a few moments. I have this one song. I'll give you one sad one and then one cool one.
Okay.
The sad one, recently, so my dad passed away in 2015, and I wrote this song for him called Drip Coffee. And we did our album release show the other day. And my mom and my sister were there, and I have another sister. She wasn't at this one, but it's happened before with her too in the audience. And whenever I play that, and a lot of my family, my dad's siblings were at this show too. I started playing that and kind of seeing everybody sort of choke up, because they all know it's about my dad. So those are really special moments for me, because it reminds me of my dad, and it makes me think about all the love in my family and how much everybody loved him. And then there's also this moment of like, this music's moving people, and that's such a big part of music for me. Is it's supposed to move you, whether it's physically in dance or emotionally or spiritually. When I see people connecting with the song, and I know that they're thinking about my dad, it's a really big moment for me. And it's happened a few times whenever I can play for family. as weird as that can be sometimes playing for family, it's that special moment where I know, like, doesn't matter who else is in the room. I know that whoever knows my dad and I are connecting because we're singing about him. And, so that's always really special. And then, so that's the sad one, but it's a good feeling. It's a good sad.
Right.
And then, whenever this, like I said, I have this one song called Go Back that the first time I got people to really sing along in like a loud way to it was at the Best Place, Pabst, like the Pabst Mansion. I don't know if you've been there, or not the mansion, the like brewery that they do like tours in.
Oh, okay.
I did a show there with some other cool bands, and I was the opener, and I did an acoustic show, and it was beautiful. Like, we're in this courtyard, like it's all brick, so the sound's just going everywhere, and it sounds really good though. The sound guys really knew what they were doing. And I got everybody singing along, and by the end of that song, everybody was just singing, and it sounded so huge in this little like brick square. So that was a really like inspirational moment, because again, it's people deciding to sing along with you, and like people were there to listen to music. It wasn't like we were at a bar, and everybody's doing their own thing, or a restaurant where sometimes you're just the background noise. This was like people were sitting or standing, and they were watching music, and they were like engaging with it. So those moments, whenever I can have one of those, that sets me on a high that's bigger than anything. It's so great.
Wonderful. As we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners? Perhaps a message or insight about your music journey, or something we haven't touched upon yet?
I guess I would just say a message for everybody is support indie rock. I've really kind of embraced the independent rocker lifestyle to some extent, where it's, a lot of indie bands out there, they're doing it all on their own. We're buying the records that we're trying to sell. We're buying the merch. We're booking the shows. We're learning the songs and renting the PAs and everything. And I would say to anybody out there who's listening that, maybe thinks that this is just fun and games, it's a lot of work. And anybody who's ever bought a record or reached out and, said they listened to something, that means a lot. So continue to do that. And that has definitely driven me on my musical journey. Anytime anyone says like, hey, this is really great, or I bought your record, or I, checked out your video, or whatever, that's huge. So I think those little things keep me going. I don't know if that really answers your question.
No,
it's definitely part of my journey.
Awesome. And then lastly, where can listeners find you online, stay updated on your upcoming projects, performances, and such?
Yeah, all the social medias, if you go to Frank Gappa on Facebook or frank.gappa on Instagram, I usually post on there pretty regularly. Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, all that stuff is where you can check my music out. That's really helpful if you can go stream. And if you want to buy a physical copy, which I have right here, the record, which I'd love to send you one if you have a record player.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah, I'll send you one. You have to give me your address.
Sweet.
You can buy that on Bandcamp, and so that's where you can. And I do have a gig coming up April 17th at Company Brewing again, opening up for Zach Petrini.
Okay,
great.
I had him on music. Yep, I've had him on the show.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, so opening up for him, and then there's a touring band, Mojo Hand, who's out of New York, I believe, that's coming through. So that's the next show that's booked for now. I'm not 100% sure if it'll be solo Frank Gappa or trio Frank Gappa, but either way, it should be a fun night.
Awesome. And then to play the podcast out, what song would you like your listeners to hear?
Oh, let's do Private Party.
Okay. Awesome. Any specific reason?
It's one of the newer songs on the record, and I really like the guitar part on it. I think it's super fun. Awesome. And it's one that when we play it live, it gets pretty fun. We have a lot of fun doing that one. There's a solo in it, and it's kind of got a jangly vibe to it. So definitely one of the songs that I'm, newer songs are always feel like the ones you're like, yeah, this is really good. But it's one that I'm still pretty jazzed about.
Awesome. Well, I'll put all your social media links in the show description so people can just click on that. Do you have a website?
I don't right now, actually. I have,
okay.
Bandcamp is probably the best way if you want to find, like, that's got all my contact information. So Bandcamp, and then just Frank Gappa. Website's kind of in the works right now. So yeah, that's a little on the back burner, unfortunately, but
no problem. Well, Frank, thank you so much for talking with me here on the Wisconsin Music Podcast. I love talking about, music, obviously, and hearing your story is very inspirational. I hope the listeners enjoyed it as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, man. I appreciate what you're doing. And it's great that you're doing this for the Wisconsin music scene. So I thank you for all that you're doing and trying to spread the word on independent artists.
Thanks.
Dancers and singers all around, but the intermission comes too soon. Are you happy to be home by now? Find the keys, take your headphones down. Party's over once you're in, you're in. There's a members club by the train. You show your card, but still wait, and the doors will open soon as you go. Are you happy to be home by now? Find your keys, take your headphones down. Party's over once you're in, you're in. Are you happy to be home by now? Find your keys, take your headphones down. Party's over once you're in, you're in. It's opening night for a new show. They got your ticket, Helen will go. Are you tired of missing out? Or you happy to be home by now?
Well, thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Wisconsin Music Podcast. Once again, I'm Zach Fell, your host and creator of the Wisconsin Music Podcast, where I love to amplify the great sounds coming out of the Wisconsin state. We have great talent here, great support, great listeners. Thanks to Fox Cities Indie Radio for syndicating this on Thursdays and Sundays, along with their other great programming. So make sure you check out Fox Cities Indie Radio. Thanks again to Frank Gappa for being here on the Wisconsin Music Podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to his journey through music. Check out some of his live shows and his new album, Let Me Show You My Jean Jacket, on all streaming services. For those of you who are new to our show, the Wisconsin Music Podcast is dedicated to showcasing the incredible talent of Wisconsin-based musicians and the thriving local music community. Our episodes drop every Tuesday on all streaming platforms and YouTube. Additionally, you can catch our episodes on Fox Cities Indie Radio every Thursday at 6 p.m. and Sunday at 3 p.m. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week with another fantastic episode on the Wisconsin Music Podcast. If you'd like to be on the show, just go to wisconsinmusicpodcast.com, fill out the guest request form up at the top, ask for your email and your name, and then I'll send you an auto email asking you for more information. If you are enjoying these episodes, please consider donating to the Wisconsin Music Podcast. Donations help pay for the website and putting the podcast up on streaming services, and also getting our name out there to all Wisconsinites and others that are interested in our great music here in Wisconsin. Donations are secured through PayPal and Stripe. All you have to do is go to the website and click on Donate to WMP. You can also head over to our Instagram and Facebook pages and like us there. Leave some comments. Also go to the podcast review section of your podcast player and leave a 5-star review. Would be great. You can also head over to YouTube and watch the interviews and leave comments there as well. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you next time.